She could not tell how many, but they all stood around her bed, fussing over her. They all wore the same type of wrapper and were keen to find out how she felt and if she was feeling better. She had one of them say, "Fetch one of the guards right away. Someone needs to tell His Majesty that the young lass has awoken." "Where am I?" little Lalia asked as she looked around the big room. Lost. As she lay, trying to figure out how she got there and how she was going to escape, she saw the ladies quickly kneel with their heads bowed. A tall figure walked in, flanked by some menacing-looking men with spears. He must be the king, Lalia thought to herself. Everyone in the room quickly filed out of the room as soon as they were motioned by the king to stand up, except for the lady who requested for the king's presence. She seemed to be the oldest of the ladies and marathonly as well. "How is she faring now?" the king asked, while his gaze was fixed on little Lalia's little frame on the bed. "She's still a little weak, Your Majesty, but she'll be all right in a day or two," the maid responded. After saying this, she bowed to the king once more and left the room. Little Lalia was now alone with the king, and despite the pain she was in, she could not help the feeling of awe that she felt over his presence. In all her life, she had never dreamed that she would be in the presence of the king. She had grown up hearing about him. She had even seen him from a distance, but she had never been in his presence. She had heard many tales about the royal family and the king. She had many stories of his grace, wisdom, and fairness. She always admired him and knew him to be an exceptional being. Now in his presence, she was dumbfounded and could barely let out a sound. Even her throat felt dry. She could not do anything but fumble around as she lay, not knowing what to say or do. "You saved us all, brave lass. Do you know that?" He watched as she tried stealing glances at him. All her life, she had never seen anyone so clean and charming. He looked strong and better looking than any man she had ever seen. King Sayumba," she murmured. The sound of her voice surprised her, and when she realized that she had called his name, she quickly started to apologize. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty," she said, eyes downcast, scared to meet his gaze. At this, the king smiled and asked, "What is your name?" Still looking at her through the kindest eyes Lalia ever saw, he felt an immense feeling of gratitude towards her for what she had done, but Lalia could hardly even remember the events that had transpired. Lalia Damfara," she managed, stumbling on her words. She stole another glance at him. She chose to use the Damfara name because she believed that was her mother's family name. The king proceeded to ask her where she was from, and she responded. "So I take it you were on a journey yesterday?" the king asked, all the while wondering why a little girl would be traveling without their guardian or warden. He was sure there was more to be found out, because for a girl her age to be alone on such perilous journey at that time of the day was very strange indeed. As soon as little Lalia had the king's question, she remembered why she was there. She had been out in search of her mother to alert her of the fire. She told him about the fire, explaining to him how pertinent it was that she found her mother. The king noticed how frantic she was becoming. She sounded like she was going to cry as she stammered her words out. He could not help feeling sorry for her. He placed his palms on her unwounded cheek, as the other one was still covered in leaves. He wiped off her tears. He could not help feeling affectionate towards her. "Where was your mother traveling to?" the king asked. He was sure that the armed robbers would not have let anyone they met on that way go without harming them. "Bundu. It is where she comes from." As she said this, she noticed the expression on the king's face change. He seemed almost pensive and worried. "I am sorry to have to be the one to tell you this, but I don't think it is likely that the armed robbers would let anyone that comes across their path go scot-free." He saw that what he just said had somewhat puzzled and troubled little Lalia, so he added, "Your mother did not want you to go with her because she did not want to see you hurt. Going to Bundu nowadays is no easy task. There are highway robbers on that journey who do nothing but lurk around everywhere waiting for travelers to rob. They were the ones who attacked you yesterday. They are quite an awful bunch of people." King Sayumba realized that he was beginning to feel an almost paternal need to protect this little girl he barely even knows. Well, aside from her name and the fact that she saved their lives. Despite being quite young, she seemed to have understood what the king meant. He promised that he will send some of the butlers to go in search for her mother. However, he insisted that Lalia stay in the palace as his ward until her mother was found. With their home burnt down and her mother away, little Lalia accepted the offer to stay. After all, she needed a place to stay and recover. When Queen Tati heard about the king's decision, she did not like it. She ordered some of the guards to find out everything they could about this strange little girl and make sure her story was true, because she did not believe that little Lalia was really who she said she was. Even worse, she was getting increasingly irritated by the intense affection the king was showing towards the little girl. Apart from their son, she had never seen anyone get as much of the king's attention as little Lalia. There was something about the little girl that seemed to tug at everyone's heartstrings. The search for little Lalia's mother went on for 3 days, but alas was futile. They had searched the kingdom and the most surrounding kingdoms. They had retracted the journey to Lalia's kingdom but found nothing. Neither little Lalia's mother nor her uncle Damfara. The robbers were just like the king had said, very dreadful. They were some of the descendants of the Sereburus who decided to stick to their old evil ways. There was a time when they had committed to change, but some were resolved to staying hostile, and they had become worse than even their ancestors. They always left a terrible trail of dead bodies in their wake. No life was spared. They would attack any traveler found on their path, especially the merchants who go from village to village selling goods. They would rob them, and if nothing valuable was found on them, they would kill them without remorse or mercy. They do not have a kingdom, but they have ruled over many of the outlying villages, and most of the natives of the villages will often flee. When this happened, the Sereburus would always pillage what was left in the village, and once they were done, they would move on to the next village, leaving the previous one in total ruins. This was how they have been carrying on for many years, and their actions have made traveling anywhere a real nightmare. Even for a king with a large and strong army, King Sayomba is aware that they were slowly encroaching into Tongo, and this will put the kingdom in grave risk. For this reason, he always made sure that he had his best soldiers on guard around the kingdom and its neighboring villages. This was done not only to protect the people of the kingdom, but also to protect the merchants who were traveling in and out of Tongo to sell their goods. Goods much needed by people.